Excellent. So we are live. I can see the red dot is in position. And I wanted to say a huge thank you because I know you rushed back from the office, Sylvester, to join me on Coffee with Kofi episode today. So thank you very much for making it. How's your day been?
Yeah, it's been really good. Thank you. My pleasure. All the better for speaking with you, Kofi. Yeah, it's been great to be here. So thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much. Um, You know, the when I pitched this to you, I'm really delighted that I know we've had a couple of attempts to make it happen, but delighted that you said yes. And the premise of it for anyone that's checking it out for the first time is really to share the stories of leaders across the world who've heeded the call to pivot to meaningful work for them, which in turn supports their families, their local communities, and the world as a whole, as a way of sort of sharing learnings and empowering others to, you know, do what they may think is impossible until they get to see someone else doing it. So without further ado, I'd love to just pass the microphone to your good self to give us a whistle stop tour of, if I'm right, your sort of 24-year career, something like that.
Yeah, blimey, making me feel old. Probably thinking about
You
that.
don't
But
look
yeah,
it. You don't
I
look
think
it.
I think I'm into my 24th year now. Yeah, since leaving university, and it's been quite a journey, as you can imagine. So, do you want me to sort of go back, sort of right to the very beginning, and tell a bit about my sort of background, the cultural background, and then move through there? If that would be helpful for people.
Yeah,
So.
that would be great context.
Yeah,
Thank you.
perfect. Yeah, so I'm second generation Ghanaian. So my parents came to the UK in the 70s. So I'm the firstborn and got three sisters. We've all sort of grown up in the UK through UK education, but always with that really strong cultural heritage, which I think sort of doesn't leave you often when you have parents who have sort of travelled over from places like Ghana and others. So we've always had
Mm,
a really sort of strong sense of our background and our heritage, which has stayed with me throughout my career. But we spent all my kind of working career, schooling in the UK, and really been very privileged, I guess, that my parents have instilled in me and my sisters actually, a really important sort of sense of hard work and the dedication, and really just instilling in us the need to, I guess, really just demonstrate to everybody at all times, just our ability, our strengths, but also increasingly as I've got a bit older, sort of understanding that demonstrating vulnerability is also quite important too.
mm,
For people to try and start so you can, I guess, really, I suppose, sort of get to know me as a person. I work in a client-facing, sort of reasonably high-pressured job, and so from my perspective, being able to build relationships with my colleagues, with people who work with me, um, clients, is really quite important. And so, over time, I've sort of been able, I think, to just pivot a little bit the way I kind of manage and lead people, the way I manage and lead my projects, so that people just build, a real good sort of rapport with me, and we're able to then, I guess, reach an outcome more smoothly without bumps in the road. So that's been a
great.
journey to kind of really kind of get to that
Yeah,
place.
and actually, it's you're segueing beautifully because I will come on to some of those lessons in leadership and your approach a bit more. So it'd be really good to, I guess, going back to starting out, um, just where you started, and how your career's progressed would be really great sort of background for now, and then we can build on that if that works for you as well.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, sure. So I went to university in Cambridge. I studied classics, so Latin and Greek. And when I was getting into my final years there, I was sort of asking myself, what is it that I want to do with myself? I sort of worked out quite quickly. I didn't want to be a Latin teacher.
Mhm.
Probably not one for me. So what could I do? And I guess the beauty of the sort of UK education system is that, actually, particularly if you're studying humanities, it doesn't really preclude you from almost, pursuing any path you want. And so I said to myself, I quite like the idea of potentially being a lawyer or being, a banker or corporate finance, just something which was kind of, facing into to clients, where I could use, I guess, the people skills I developed, but also my brain, without necessarily having to sort of be really sort of narrow in terms of, only having studied that subject, and so that's what I do.
Right.
So I applied for a number of roles in law and in investment banking. I was lucky enough to do a number of internships, which were real eye openers for me, because at the age I was 21, and feeling as though you can tackle the world, and everything that you're at that age, you realize very, very quickly that you don't, and actually there's a lot of learning still to do. So doing those some summer internships in investment banks and one in a law firm were real baptisms of fire, really, because they demonstrated to me that you're only really scratching the surface of what's ahead of you, when you're going through university, and there's a lot of senior people who have been there and done it, and are wiser for it. And actually, a number of them have remained really good mentors to me 24 years later. I'm still in touch with a few people, which has been great. But it was a real eye opener, and I decided to go into investment banking. So I started my career at Goldman Sachs, working in investment banking there, which was an amazing experience, an extremely tough one, that's for sure. So that was a really, really demanding job. It was a job I really enjoyed. It was a job where I learned an enormous amount in a short space of time. It's a job where I learned to conduct myself professionally, start to understand what I guess high finance really is, understand what facing into clients and building rapport with clients and understanding their needs and reacting to those and giving advice means, all of which actually develops over time. In fact, I still feel I'm developing a lot of those skills even now, 24 years later.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, so it's very much a learning experience for me. But yeah, that was my kind of first step into finance, and I've been there ever since, really, in various different roles. So I've worked in a smaller investment bank. Since then, I've worked in a quite small specialist boutique, all of which providing investment banking and corporate finance services. And I currently work at Ernst and Young, EY, and I'm a partner. I'm leading the healthcare M&A practice there. So it's been an interesting journey for me, working in various different firms, all of which included very different people to build rapport with, often people very different to me.
Yeah, I can imagine.
A number of roles I had where I was the only Black senior individual, and so kind of building presence in those firms, in the market, and really getting over some of the challenges, which, let's face it, some of those of us of colour in senior roles can sometimes face. That was quite a journey, and I'm still on that journey, really. But yeah, it's been really, really interesting 24 years. I sort of feel as though I'm still learning so much. People call me a senior leader, but every day I'm learning something different. Interacting with people I've never interacted before, having to learn new skills, new ways of doing things, etc. So yeah, it's been fantastic.
That is an awesome journey, and look, thank you so much for understanding the assignment of taking us through 24 years in 2.5 minutes or so, but because you have done a lot, and I think it's it would be remiss of me not to say that knowing your background a bit, and I know you've glossed over some of the names of where you've worked, for speed and efficacy. Your background reads like a platinum list of reputable organizations, from the seat of learning that you chose to go to, which would be rare for many people to go to, let alone people from our background, to likes of Goldman's, and then Deloitte, and then Ernst and Young now, skipping a couple in between. So yeah, super proud of what you've achieved, because I don't imagine there would have been many that would have forged that path, to your point, that had gone ahead of you, so to speak. So good stuff. So let me just delve into your remit now. You talked about EY, Ernst & Young is where you are now, as a partner in the healthcare and life sciences area. So what is the remit that you have now? And then perhaps we could expand and look at the sort of scope of the team that you have in terms of the number of people that come into that function, really.
Yeah, sure. So to distill it down, my job is to advise um, corporates, founder-managed businesses, and financial investors like private equity firms on making investments in and transacting in the healthcare and life sciences sectors. So, a typical mandate for me will be advising a corporate which is looking to acquire perhaps a healthcare business which might be a competitor, a healthcare product which could add to its existing operations, a private equity firm which is looking to make a majority investment in a healthcare business, grow it, and then exit in due course, or indeed a founder who has grown a really nice healthcare related business to a certain size, has decided that they want to maybe monetize their investment or even exit completely, or have to sell the business to somebody. And they ask me and my team to help them to do it. So when I describe healthcare, obviously that's quite a wide church, right? So, how I would sort of distill down the areas that we focus on are the really kind of three main buckets in healthcare. The first is clinical services, so advising businesses that focus on providing clinical services. Sometimes, interacting with the NHS and working with the NHS, and sometimes private. So, as an example, I've worked with a number of IVF clinics which are looking to expand and grow for investment. So, advising the shareholders of that business on acquiring new sites, on selling sites, on merging with other corporates, for example. Dental businesses similar as well. Obviously, a mix of public funded dental care and private. Again, some of those corporates decide that they want to go into a large liquidity event of some description or a large transaction, and they would advise us to help them how to do it, provide the financial advice related to that. So clinical services is a big part of what we do. The next part I would say is kind of healthcare products and devices. So advising the manufacturers and distributors of healthcare products, often around the globe. So, and I've worked on so many different types of transactions in that area. So, at one end, I've advised in our business that produced and distributed PPE. So
for COVID times,
right during COVID time. So, boxes of gowns and face masks and gloves and other protective equipment. That's one end. The other end, I've advised businesses that have created a technology that goes into people's bodies and keeps them alive, highly regulated, life supporting, life altering technology. So, there's a real kind of wide scope of different types of projects that we can work on and to advise our clients on. That is an area of quite a lot of focus and interest from investors, from funding sources looking to invest in the next great technology. And so, and it's a global sector, so that provides lots of interesting M&A opportunities and things to advise our clients on. So that's the second bucket. The third bucket is healthcare technology and IT. So as we know, increasingly healthcare is becoming very much digitized. There's lots of kind of online provision that's happening, virtual appointments, for example. There's loads of really interesting software that's been produced by great sort of fast moving companies to streamline sort of back office processes, for example. AI that is used to scan x-rays and to find variations in x-rays and CT scans and that sort of thing. We work really closely with colleagues in our office who work on the software and technology side of M&A. And so we come together where me and my team will bring the kind of healthcare expertise, they will bring the technology expertise, and by combining that, we're then able to offer a really kind of comprehensive proposition to our clients to say, right, this is how we can help you to get funding, to sell the business, to think about ways you can expand the business, and we bring that kind of technical expertise from those two teams together. So that works really, really well, and is an enormous growth area for us in our business. So those are the kind of three areas in healthcare that we focus on. On the life sciences side, we do a lot advising businesses involved in clinical trials, so drug development and bringing drugs to commercialization. So we've got a number of opportunities that we're working on in that sector as well, and it's obviously a very, very topical, important sector with just thinking about the COVID vaccine and how quickly that came to market, and other vaccines and new drugs coming to market. all the time. The kind of whole infrastructure around how you bring a drug to market is enormous and highly regulated, and we advise on transactions in that area too. So that's going to be the areas of focus. You asked about the team, so I lead a team of, but my corporate finance team is a team of 7 people. So I head it up, and then I've got a number of team members who work with me, all well educated, all spend pretty much all of their time advising in the sector. So build up a really important sort of bedrock of knowledge, which is important when you're going and speaking to clients, because they want to know that you understand their product, their business, their sector. Why would somebody buy my business? Why would somebody pay me a premium price for it? How do I position it to get interested buyers really excited about the proposition? So you need to understand it, and sometimes that goes as deep as understanding the science, and understanding how the regulation works, and then understanding who's interested in acquiring or transacting in the sector at the time. So you've got to kind of have your finger really closely on the pulse in that regard to what's happening. So that's kind of what we do. But within EY itself, we have probably around the globe around about 40,000-50,000 people who focus on the sector alone. So that's a lot of people. So we tend to find that within our firm, there's always somebody somewhere who has expertise or knowledge, or is able to help us out when we need to think about a particular aspect of the transaction, which requires a little bit more thinking. For example, the challenge sometimes is actually finding the person, because there are so many. So we sit in a very, very big ecosystem. There's lots of communication and cross border activity and interaction, which is great. And we work very much in a global sector. And so we've got to be able to demonstrate our ability to kind of transact anywhere around the globe as is required.
That is brilliant. I mean, I hear in there the sort of challenge, but also opportunity for collaboration with subject matter experts, and I also hear the sort of piece around the clients wanting you to come on board as experts, which had me thinking about the classics background that you had, where you'd be widely read and the sort of research element. But the bit that foxed me a little bit is I had imagined that your role would be, certainly the team, or certainly earlier days when you're looking at M&A activity, quite numerically based in terms of analyzing sort of cash flows and all the other sort of key metrics that you need to make decisions on whether to buy or invest in something or not. Is my assumption there correct? There is a degree of numeracy required in it, or
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, we are financial advisors ultimately, so we're providing corporate finance strategic advice, but ultimately, it comes down to the brass tacks of the finances, and what somebody's going to pay, and what the numbers look like. So you do need to have that understanding and grounding, no doubt about that. So I'm doing corporate finance and M&A in a global accountancy firm, right? So we have lots of really smart accountants who have moved over into my department and are doing great things. Have that really strong numerical background. I'm a chartered accountant by background as well. I glossed over that when we were talking earlier. So
people do this; they just sort of skim through, and I'm glad that you brought it up, because those I think now, or maybe still then, the sort of 14 exams or so that you have to do, and stress that I understand from hiring people from the Big Four into industry. If you may get one referral, you might get away with it, but everyone was always trying to get those first-time passes to keep their CVs squeaky clean. So so no, it's good to understand that, because so that you did the classics, then you've got the numbers. So I'm now seeing how the two kind of blend together in terms of being widely read, being able to research. But then something that I picked up from earlier was the collaboration and relationship building aspect that you talked about as well, which I don't know if that comes from learning or that comes from outside experience. But for you, like, where did that come from? Because some people just will rather be, I need to talk to people, let me do my analysis, but others don't mind to do that. And it sounds like you enjoy that. So I'm just wondering where that stems from.
Yeah, that's my favorite bit. And ultimately, I sort of say that sometimes if you've got it, you've got it, and sometimes if you haven't got it, you haven't. It can be
Yeah.
learned, so some people naturally are kind of outgoing, effervescent people, and they're able to kind of build relationships internally with colleagues and then ultimately
Sure.
externally with clients quite quickly and quite easily, because that's just the type of person that they are. They're likable, they read people really quite quickly, they kind of understand body language and cues, and so can react accordingly. But some people, that doesn't come naturally to them, and that needs to kind of be developed over time. And when we're hiring people and when we're thinking about who the right candidates are for jobs in our team, we assess that, and we do assess how people feel, speaking and conversing with people, whether that's on Teams or Zoom or Google Meet, whatever you're using these days. So that's kind of one form of communication which people need to be comfortable with, but also just the interaction face to face, which you can't beat. Can people hold a conversation when actually you're starting to run out of things to say, not just look at your laces,
It doesn't happen over here, I'll tell you that for free. It doesn't happen over here, but I know
exactly.
what you mean.
It's very important. And as I say, how have I developed it? I think it's just been something that I've always done. I come from a large family, a large noisy family, where if you're gonna be heard, you need to shout, you need to kind of get in the front of the queue, and you need to be, you need people to notice you being there. And so over the years, I've learned to do that, and sometimes temper it and change and tweak it accordingly. But yeah, that's just something that I've always enjoyed doing. I love sitting down and talking to clients, doing the numbers and writing the memorandums and stuff. Yeah, you got to do that. That's got to be high quality and professional and all the rest of it. No problem with that. But actually, it's how you deliver the message, how you interact with clients, how you build confidence with them in you, how you convince buyers that your business is the best one to acquire, and these are reasons why. And a lot of that sort of just stems from your kind of natural ability to interact and charisma to a certain extent, but it can be learned. And the way, one of the things that we always say to people when they join is that it can be quite daunting sometimes, even just talking to a senior individual in the team. You can sometimes see some of new colleagues who join our team. They're quite nervous even talking to senior colleagues internally. You can see the nerves there. And what we always say is that, look, we're all there once. It takes time. You got to kind of I guess get comfortable with what it is you're saying in your remit. And when you have confidence in what you're talking about, then obviously your kind of natural your kind of natural charisma then hopefully will come through. So it does take time, but there's a place for everybody of all sorts of walks of life and all sorts of dispositions. I think in our business, the key thing is that have you got the propensity to learn, to develop, to grow, to take cues from what you're seeing other people doing, and really kind of build your own style and build your own build your own way of working in a way that's effective.
Yeah, I mean, those ingredients that you speak of there, I think that those are fundamental recipes for success for anybody more generally. And there's also a piece around the environment working for the individual, and I guess that's a factor of the culture and potentially sort of the other people that they interact with, which is something I do want to discuss with you a bit later on. But for anyone that's listening that would maybe want to take learnings from your journey, and I want to normalize the fact that you are where you are, but at the same time celebrate that, because apart from, I think, Alberta Charles at PwC, I don't know personally any other Black partners in the profession. There may be some, you may hang out with them, but I think it's to be celebrated, because certainly from my perspective, it feels like you're in the minority. Are there more? Are there others? Many others?
Yeah, there are others. There are a few of us around, but there are not very many of us. That's for sure, proportionately. So there are others, and look, it's still a shamefully small number, I would say. And I always ask myself the question about Black partners and why there's so few of them, because when we hire a lot of Black people and people of color into our firm, So we're very diverse in the junior ranks. We hire from overseas as well, so we have people joining from various different parts of Africa and the Caribbean and that sort of thing, as well as black colleagues more generally. It's a profession that people aspire to, right? So we do get really good, high quality people of all walks of life, shapes and sizes, colours, creeds, etc. But we lose so many of our black colleagues along the way. And I know it sounds a little bit like you just dropped something out of your pocket, but that's the best way to describe it. We just lose them on the way. And when you kind of do the analysis and you ask yourself, well, why is it that there are so few people who kind of make it? It's quite startling and a bit upsetting to kind of get the feedback. So some of the feedback we get, when people are leaving the business is that, well, I felt as though people didn't really understand me. I felt as though, projects were being given to folk, by staffers who were focusing on people that they had an affinity to, and sometimes, maybe unconsciously, sharing out the best projects to people who look and sound and feel the same. And there are not many black staffers, so though you therefore see that. So, and that comes up quite a lot actually. So it's more than just disgruntled employees kind of putting down their list of grievances. It comes up a lot in discussions we have with people. The other thing that we have a lot of, and which is something that I really am trying to focus on, is individuals saying we just don't have any role models, black role models, where I can say, yeah, that person, he or she has made it. He or she comes from the same background as me, and it shows me that it can be done because there's so few of us. And then it's also incumbent on senior individuals like me to actually lift my head up from the desk and say to myself, look, I need to help support my colleagues and demonstrate to them how I've done it, which is just how I've done it. Doesn't mean you need to do it in the same way, but that's just my story, how I've done it, what I believe good looks like, and how I can support them on their journeys, because we're also busy, and you can very easily just allow things to just wash over you while you're busy with client work. People just leave, and you wonder, why the hell has that person left? What's the problem? And you realize you missed a whole lot of stuff because you've been too busy. So I think there's an extra responsibility. I genuinely believe that. Some people would say, this is not the case, but I believe it. There's an extra responsibility, I believe, for black partners in professions like ours to kind of put themselves out there somewhat and to help and support and mentor, because it is tough for black colleagues to kind of get to these senior roles, and the evidence is stark because there just aren't so many of us. So, but yeah, you start with quite a number at the bottom, so something is not right.
Which is a really fascinating conundrum, because having worked with a number of organizations across the years, it's sometimes when you look at the talent acquisition strategies that they have, the flow of diverse candidates, be it across sex, shade, any sort of protected characteristic, but in this case, let's talk about the global majority or black people, brown people. There's fewer coming in, and therefore you extrapolate, do the maths, you expect fewer. But where you start with so many, it's interesting that you have that drop off. But it resonates, because I think, to your point, representation is so key. So I talked about it previously. When I look at cycling, which is my sport, compared to football, I see the diversity in football partly because from when I was you're kicking a tennis ball, you're kicking a can, you're kicking, and you see the John Barneses of this world, the Ian Wrights of this world doing the thing. So I could do that. Whereas in cycling, I think I only started racing bikes last year at the tender age of 43, because I never saw anyone do it. And of course, there's a barrier to entry, there's other sort of things, but I think it's important and it's commendable that you make the time to go above and beyond a demanding day job anyway, to just let people know that you're there. And so thank you for doing that for the broader community. But one thing that I did think would be lovely to touch upon is the transition that you've had from role to role, and maybe rather than do it in a chronological order, you mentioned something about how you had done it. And I think this would be really impactful and also powerful to understand, what you feel the recipe for your ascension has been, beyond being amazing and also aerodynamic like myself with glasses, but beyond that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's a good question, really. And like I say, the way I progressed is one way of progressing. This might not be how other people's believe they ought to progress, and that's absolutely fine. So I'm just going to sharing my experience, really. So I think the first thing that's been important to me in my career is, and this is a fundamental of anything, like, just be good at your job. Be good at what you're doing, add value, ensure that when you're working in a very large organization or even in a small one, that you explore and if it doesn't exist, sometimes even build yourself the infrastructure support network around yourself that can help you to proceed. And that sounds quite dramatic, and maybe kind of for some people it just feels it's unachievable. But what I really mean by that is build relationships to the extent you can do with peers who maybe have influence, or with peers who are demonstrating some behaviors that actually you'd like to aspire to, first of all. So build those internal relationships, try and build those internal relationships with managers as well. So if all you're doing is talking to a manager at your appraisal twice a year, then you're not talking to them enough. So how can you build lasting relationships with people who have influence, or people who can influence your career by saying good things about you, by elevating you in discussions about promotion and that sort of thing, and really help you to do that. So building those internal relationships is going to be key, and it's not easy, because as I was saying to you, a lot of people who are leaving our firm and other firms I've worked in are saying, well, I just don't feel as though I've got the role models, the relationships internally, and it's really difficult for me to build those without them being kind of artificial, because we just don't have much in common. But it's important to do that, and I know it's not easy, but think about that. I've been an enormous advocate of mentoring. Mentoring, I think, is really, really important. And to be fair, there's lots of big organizations now, like ours, for example, that do have sort of formal mentoring programs. And I would ask people to sort of lean into that, because from my perspective, just being able to speak to somebody who's been there and done that, just being able, frankly, to let off steam sometimes as somebody who is not your manager and is not involved in what you're doing, but could just give you some perspectives on things, I think is important. So mentoring is important as well. And when you start to sort of build up all of these different sort of components of, support around you, you can then start to say to yourself, it helps you to kind of, I suppose, sometimes just rise above the kind of imposter syndrome that we can sometimes feel, that, I should be here, I'm not that good, I can never do that, what these people are demonstrating. A lot of time the people who are shouting the loudest and seem to be performing the best are people who have actually obviously got talent, but also have built-in good, strong internal networks and relationships which are elevating them as well. So that's quite important to think about in whatever way it might be, to kind of build and develop. And then to my mind, I've then sort of said to myself, well, once you sort of feel as though, I am learning really well, I do have support, I am getting promoted, you can then start thinking about what your personal professional self-worth is. Maybe it's to stay in this business forever and start as a grad and become a partner and do that over 15, 20 years. Or maybe actually it's, I'm going to go and take my franchise and my skills and go and join somewhere else. And so and have the confidence in yourself to be able to go and do that and make a success in a new organization. And so I've done that a number of times over my career, just got myself to a point where actually, for various reasons, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's, just for change, sometimes it's because actually I feel I'm ready to go out and take on a new challenge. Making those moves with confidence, in my view, is a really good way to step quickly through the grades and sort of get promoted quicker than sometimes being in the one organization all the way through. Now, as I say, this is just my lived experience, and it's worked for me. It may not work for others, but I guess having the I suppose the ambition to see your self-worth, build that network around yourselves internally and externally, so people who can help and promote you and can help to, as in promote you, in terms of your I don't mean to promote you to a new rank, but kind of promote you externally to people as you're moving forward, and then having the confidence to then say, right, I'm going to go and do this, and demonstrating that in front of headhunters, demonstrating that in front of people who are interviewing you, and ultimately demonstrating that to new colleagues when you land at places. That's how you progress, or certainly how I have.
Yeah, I mean, that is such a rich, multifaceted strategy for doing what you've done, and obviously it works because you are where you are. But I think within that, what I really liked, amongst many things, number one, being good at your job. But I think, and maybe you'll resonate with this, being good at your job alone will not get you to where you could be. And I don't know if this resonates with you, being sort of second generation Ghanaian as well. And maybe this is for the diaspora that have come over here to study or to work or what have you, who get frustrated and leave. I don't necessarily think we're taught that. I think what I was certainly taught, keep your head down, work hard, and your work will speak for itself. Whereas having worked in the executive search space and worked with leaders, I got to a point where I could look at someone's CV and say, yeah, this is the person that's likely to get the role. I'll put them forward, the short list or the long list goes forward, long list, then short list, put them forward. And 9 times out of 10, I'd be bang on, because there is evidence of progression. There's evidence of taking moves that not necessarily sort of linear, but challenging themselves. And then usually you'll see some extracurricular activity, like a governor of a school or a board trustee or some sort of additive thing that most people wouldn't necessarily think about. And then I see the power of sponsorship and networking so much more, because why do we want to reinvent the wheel? If there's someone that's gone before you that is friendly to your ambitions, leverage that experience and find out, like, how do I deal with a situation where, like you say, a staff is not giving me the type of projects that, and they may just ask you, much the way that coach may ask you, well, what have you done to let them know? And then you've got to think about that and then do it, and then you get the roles, and then you're not leaving. Do you see what I mean? So it's a real multifaceted approach that I think starts and ends probably with understanding and empathy on both sides, internally for the person trying to progress, knowing where they want to go and understanding what they may not be seeing, and also for individuals who've welcomed others into their organization to say, what am I not seeing, what am I not doing, and actually what is my track record of supporting and developing those that don't look and sound like me, or support the mighty Arsenal in progressing up the ranks,
I wholeheartedly agree. And it's not easy. If it was easy, we'd all be kind of just stomping up the kind of the career ladder, and all have the kind of great careers that we all want and aspire to. There are bumps in the road. There are setbacks that one has to take on the chin. And so long as they're not terminal, you use those as learning experiences, right? So this didn't work out for me in this role for these reasons. Didn't fit in well. I had a terrible manager. The work wasn't quite right. I wasn't actually good at the work, frankly. Something like that. And it's you need to be using that as sort of a shaper for the next thing you look at. So how am I going to make sure that next time around I'm going to make a success of this? Well, all the things that weren't right about my experience last time, whether that was caused by me or caused by my environment, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I'm going to pick the right environment. I'm going to make sure that I'm really good at what I'm doing, and that I'm picking up all of the things that were challenges for me last time around, and ensuring that they don't happen, they don't arise again. And just make sure that next situation, the next role, the next interview, you demonstrate the learnings from that. It's quite easy, I think, sometimes, and even I do to a certain extent, to be a little bit sort of self-pitying sometimes when you've got some challenges. Oh God, why me? It's not fair. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I have to talk to my children about just kind of, snapping themselves out of that kind of thinking. But it's it's a natural kind of human emotion and reaction. The problem is that if you let it envelop you, it will drag you down, right? And then it then becomes part of you. It becomes you.
Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, really, isn't it? It's like I think who said it? Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or you can't, you're right." And if you put those barriers in the way, then I think likelihood is it will follow suit. And I was wondering whether, because I'm mindful that where we are in a journey, not to rush you along, because I know you will probably need to go at some point soon-ish, but could we transition the conversation to talk a bit about the lessons for leadership? Because I think what you've helped there is with a real foundation of how do you elevate yourself through your career. But if we look at you now climbing that mountain and sitting in that seat of a leader, which you now occupy and that you have over your past career, I'd really love to just share with people listening and watching what some of your key lessons from leadership have been, just so that, just like you've done with careers acceleration, they might be able to say, maybe that resonates, or actually, I don't like that one. I doubt they say that, but do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So I'll just share some perspectives. Again, this is quite personal. It doesn't mean it's gospel or right or wrong, but what's worked to me. I guess the first thing is that sometimes you do have to make tough decisions as a leader, and you shouldn't shy away from doing those. Whether that's tough decisions about the direction that a client's going, maybe you've got to deliver bad news and you've got to change what you're doing, or maybe there's a problem in the team and your staff or that sort of thing. Some of the challenges and the burden of leadership are actually delivering bad news or reacting in the right way to the bad news and events. And actually, people are often looking to their leaders to be able to guide them through challenges like that. And so it's quite important for you to kind of understand that that is one of the kind of most difficult areas of leadership, is kind of dealing with challenges and dealing with them effectively and finding solutions. So don't shy away from making tough decisions or hide under the desk from bad news. You've got to react to it. People are looking up to you, and often your decisions, with consultation, if that needs to happen, then make sure you do that, so you don't have to kind of make decisions in a dictatorial way or feel you've got to do it without support. But it is important for you to kind of understand that those difficult decisions are part of being a leader. So that's important. That's one which I think is that has always stuck with me. I guess number two is just try and think about what type of leader you want to be. Now, I mentioned before that to my mind, that I like to sort of feel that to the people who work with me and the people that I lead enjoy my style of leadership, that I'm kind of open and progressive and I listen and we react and we do that sort of thing. So think about the type of leader you want to be. Do you want to be a leader like that? That sounds like a great example of being a leader maybe to some people, but sometimes you want to be somebody who leads from the front, leads by example, and pulls everybody along. Sometimes actually, being a good leader is actually letting people have their head, and just pushing and promoting them and not micromanaging and letting them go forward. Sometimes being a really good leader means, providing people with the infrastructure for them to succeed. So I was talking a little bit about people building that infrastructure together, recognizing that sometimes, have been perceptive as a leader and recognizing that sometimes people need that support, and helping them to do that is also a great kind of leadership as well, and so there's many different facets and different type and styles of leader that, one could be. The question for you is, what type of leader do you want to be? Sometimes that type of leader will be the making or breaking of your team, the making or breaking of the proposition that you have. And so you need to think about it really, really carefully and allow yourself the flexibility to kind of change or make a wholesale, but just tweak things here and there in order to kind of react to different individuals, different circumstances, and try and have that flexibility of leadership, which, I guess makes you kind of an all-encompassing, sort of well-rounded leader of people. So that I think is quite important as well.
That is helpful. And that speaks to me around sort of situational leadership. So you've got your core values, your core approach that you've reflected on and that you want to impart with the team, but the different circumstance might call for a different type of leadership. And think of this when I think of someone relatively new coming into the team to someone that's established and has demonstrated their subject matter expertise. Like how you may manage those two may be different. Or if a corporate event is taking place and you're in an organization that's going to be taken over or fighting to take over a bit, you know, that calls for, I think, a different energy and a different approach in terms of, you know, what can be shared when and all that sort of stuff. So thank you for those tips. And I think you've helped me with the next question that I had around your approach to leadership. So I was going to then say, in terms of the tools that you've used to elevate sounds a bit too enhance, that's the one I'm looking for, to enhance your leadership approach. What are some of the things that have been additive to your leadership journey, really?
Yeah, I mean, so I've always kind of acknowledged, and again, I mentioned this at the beginning, that I've still got a lot to learn. You know, and I'm still developing my skills, frankly, as a leader, and you know, probably will do until I'm not leading people anymore, right? Until that very day when I stop doing that. So, you know, I've always been one to kind of consult, to ask advice, to, you know, get coaching, get executive coaching if that is, you know, you feel that could be additive to what you're trying to do. You know, to have a mentor myself, to be able to share ideas and thoughts and concerns and fears and, you know, successes and that sort of thing. You know, I think sort of for me, just understanding really and having a sort of a deep understanding of, you know, the individuals that I work with, you know, getting to know them, building relationships, it just kind of helps. And actually then the leadership of those individuals can be quite natural. You know, sometimes, you know, you might have somebody in your team who you have very little in common outside of the fact that you work together and you work in the same team. But I always try to remind myself sometimes that, you know, there was a reason why I hired this individual or why this individual joined my team, you know, and understanding their strengths and weaknesses and shaping how you interact with those individuals, what jobs you give to them, how you appraise them, how you support them on their journeys with reference to, you know, the type of people that they are. Really, really important. So, you know, I think just having, again, going back to that flexibility of leadership and, you know, understanding people, I think that's going to be really key. And then also just acknowledging that, you know, as I mentioned from the outset, this is a journey. Leadership is a journey. And it doesn't go in straight lines. It goes in circles, sometimes round about the place, sometimes it reverses, sometimes you've got to jump out of the car and jump into a new one in order to kind of go in a different path, you know. And so long as you're, in my view, learning, developing over that time, taking, you know, the best of what you experience as leaders and as a leader in one instance, and reminding yourself of some of the challenges and some of the difficult aspects on the other, and bringing that all together. I think that's a great recipe.
Yeah, those are some really helpful tips there. And I, for some reason, I find myself really drawn to the people aspect around, you know, understanding the players that are on your team. If we were talking in football terms, you know, really understanding them and what makes them tick, the strengths and the weaknesses. Because yeah, I sort of see you, you know, playing that role of the leader and trying to get the most productive, fulfilled version of the team going as you can. And I think when you understand people and they feel a connection to your leadership style, then you're onto something, which actually brings me on to something I mentioned earlier on around culture and people. And for me, I really subscribe to the view that those two aspects, culture and people, are the foundation for any organization, and that the two of them really determine the sort of direction of the organization, probably beyond any other factor. However, I would really welcome your thoughts on the importance of those, and if I miss anything else that you think is critical for like an organization to be successful, as EY, you know, has proved to be year after year after year, you know.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. I mean, I think it's sort of culture and direction of travel. I mean, it's so important, you know, and when you're working in these really large global organizations, it's so easy for the culture to sort of dissipate or to become siloed. So this part of the
Mm.
business this way, and actually that's very different to how this part of the business does things in that way, and every single big organization I've worked for has a mission statement, has a North Star that they're kind of working towards, ensures that everybody knows what that is, and reminds people on regular basis, I guess, what that means in terms of how the firm, how they want the leaders want the firm to be perceived and how we deal with our clients. So, that sort of cultural aspect is great with, words and, nice diagrams and, fancy PowerPoint and whatnot. But, it's incumbent on, senior individuals within the firms to actually then help to kind of manifest that, to inculcate it, to kind of make it happen within the business. And so, and it really does start with us. We set the agenda, in my view, and you want to be pulling people along. You should be able to understand and accept some people just don't want to pull in that direction. Do they agree, that sort of thing, and whatever. And before you kind of write them off and say, right, you better go there, just to kind of understanding and explaining why we're doing things in a certain way and why it's important for us to pull together, I think is important. So it can get lost so easily when you're busy, well, all we're doing is working really hard to deliver this. Who cares whether people, we're trying to foster a culture of, belonging and togetherness. Just get back to your desk and get this done, and sometimes those types of behaviors do slip in, to organizations like that, and it makes for quite difficult, unhappy places in the main, I would say. So, just reminding yourselves at each juncture, right, why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? How can we all contribute to it? How can I help people who are struggling with it to kind of understand it? How can I help people who are skeptical to kind of get behind it? And if I can't, but I still feel that an individual in my team has got, a lot to kind of give and is added to the team, don't try and force it, but just try and just make sure that you're, providing that network and support around them to make them a success and ultimately the team a success.
Yeah, those are really, really helpful points. And I think to me, it's like walking the talk, because you go online on all these corporate websites and they'll talk about how inclusive we are and how, you'll be able to do fulfilling work and, lovely glossy pictures if they thought about it with a broad spectrum of individuals. If they haven't, well, that says something else. But there's this piece really within that around the role of a leader, almost as the carrier of the culture, is my interpretation of it. And I guess something that I've seen directly, but also heard from the numbers of people that I've talked to over the years, is that the leadership really is the embodiment of the culture. And where leaders do not align to the cultures that are presented, it kind of shows you, what's rewarded, what's tolerated. And then I guess there's a question mark around the trust that you have in what the corporate mission is and the work that you've come to do, because it starts from there, really. I mean, you can have, bottom up approaches, of course you can, but I always think that the tone is really set from the top. And you said, as a leader, the standards, and also have the ability or the power to reward, or let's say correct rather than punish. Punish sounds a bit hard, but reward or correct, behaviors that deviate from where you want to get to, really.
Yeah, agree. Yeah, and as I say, it's just one of these sort of so important yet challenging aspects of human interaction. How do you lead? Are you a good leader? What type of leader do you want to be? Do people respect you as a leader? Do you have the tools to be an effective one? It's really difficult, and it's not for the faint-hearted. And say I work in a big organization where sometimes the people matters, really are quite deep, and before you kind of throw your arms up in the air and say, "Oh God, these people never get it," and this is ridiculous. You kind of got to just be able to sort of empathize and put yourself in people's shoes and work out what the issues are, how your leadership can be really influential in
Mm.
making people comfortable, bringing that sense of belonging, making people feel that, not have that sinking feeling on a Sunday that, oh my God, I've got to go to work on the following day.
Oh,
And
the Sunday blues, the Sunday blues. Oh my
yeah,
God.
how
Yeah,
that's what they like. So yeah,
that's tough.
really.
I have been there, but it's luckily in my career that wasn't the case. But you see it. You work so hard in the week and you sort of survive almost, and then it comes to the weekend, and whatever your outlet is or your vice is, you're fully onto that, and then it gets to Sunday, and it's like, oh no, here we go again. And it can happen where you keep on that cycle. But I think for me, there's a couple more things that I'd like to explore. I could easily do this for the rest of the afternoon and we call it a day. But I know you might have to go. How long have you got left? Just so I
Yeah, I've got
speed
about
talk.
5-10 minutes or so.
All right, thank you for the for the time check, because otherwise I'm going to ask for half an hour. But in terms of navigating corporate environments, there's something that you talked about right at the top. I think it was about vulnerability. But then I sort of picked up a sort of undercurrent of authenticity in there as well, and coming into the environments and often being the sole black man in there, and certainly the higher up you've gone, as case in point we talked about, that's been rare. Have you been able to be your authentic self the whole time? And if not, can you maybe impart some personal guidance as to how you navigate that sort of potential juxtaposition between corporate you and you, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, I suppose. And look, when I started my career, there was less, I suppose, tolerance of difference. This is how we do things here. This is how we dress. This is how we interact with each other. This is how we speak. And if you don't toe the line, then you're probably going to have a quite short career here. And it's quite direct in that regard. Now, happily, things have changed since then, and actually, and for the better, of course. So, from my perspective, those days are, consigned to history. But I do remember sort of certain challenges of saying, well, I feel as though I'm a kind of a pretty relaxed, happy-go-lucky type of guy, and yet you feel this tension to kind of straighten your back up and speak a similar way to people who are successful, which is very different to what you would. And that's the path of success. You've all got to be automatons doing the same thing, speaking the same way, and that's the thing. Now, obviously, I have a big difference in how I am and how I look, because as I was saying to you, there were very few people who looked like me, sounded like me, had the same name as me, and so from that, you do that perspective, you do stand out. But what I sort of found over time is finding my kind of niche and how I want to be, and obviously, of course, the bedrock of this is still being successful in your job and doing a great job. It makes it easier, I think, to then relax, in your own skin, for people to kind of, accept you for, who you are. I mean, there has to be some form, a little bit of form of just kind of, understanding how a business operates and what the kind of parameters are, and how far you push and pull beyond what the firm or the organization or the individual you work with feel is acceptable. So what I'm not saying is that get yourself really comfortable and then you kind of put your feet up and do what you like and say what you like, and let your hair down, so to speak. So it is important to kind of acknowledge and accept that there'll be certain businesses that are built in a certain way, and there is a sort of form of kind of adherence to what the firm's values are, which we all kind of need to lean into. Having said that, most people are only going to be successful if they feel that they can bring their whole selves, whatever that might be, to work, and feel as though they can kind of promote their skills and promote their characters, without feeling the need to kind of hold too much back, or feel the need to kind of completely change the way that they do things. And that has to be the path to success. That has to be the right thing for people to sort of feel comfortable to do, because you have happy colleagues, happy staff, comfortable colleagues, comfortable staff, motivated colleagues, motivated staff, and that normally equals a great team and a great success. And so, to my mind, it's
very true.
Yeah,
Very true. I have to say that it's great to hear it sort of in your words, because I think, if jokes aside, if I was in your team and proved myself and then started rocking up my Stranger Things t-shirt when we've got a big client pitch, so when we come back to culture, there are some artifacts that are related to that, ways and accepted norms, but then there's also shared values that sort of bond you together. In my nirvana, I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I would love for people to be in organizations where they really do see each other as part of an extended family, so that the company is our family and we are here united in the common goal and the purpose. How we get to that utilizes the full authenticity of everyone in the team, so that there's just less energy spent. I've done it. Maybe you have too. Really sort of masking. You don't really want to share or bring a jollof rice in because what's that? Like, what's that? I just I'm not doing it. But when I can, and it's not something that makes you feel other, just less energy spent on pretending or holding back part of yourself, more so than pretending, but holding back part of yourself, and more energy to put into the pursuit and achievement of the common goals. And so I talk about leading with love, and I think if leaders can do that, really lead with that love and that empathy and that understand, that flexibility to bring people out of their shells and give them the confidence, like you talked about, where you tell people that we've all been here and just get good at your craft and practice, then we'd be in a fab place. So I'm fingers crossing for that day, really.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. It's exhausting trying to be something that you're not, pretending to be something that you're not, and then cracks appear, and then you get tripped up. So, try not to do it, I think, is how I can advise my colleagues: just be yourself.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really strong note. So, final question for me, if you don't mind, before I've been keeping a small check on the clock there, is when all is said and done from a career perspective for you, seeing as you're there, I don't know where you go above partner really, but what would you like your legacy to be? And that could be in whatever way, shape, or form that speaks to you at the moment.
Yeah, and that's a good question. It's it's kind of a multifaceted question in many ways. If I think about my life, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a brother, I'm an uncle, and then all of those things, I just would like people to sort of feel as though, they always saw the best in me. Ultimately, whatever challenges in life we kind of had to navigate, that they kind of felt as though, we always saw the best of Sylvester in some way. I love that to be my legacy. I love for people to kind of say about me, that guy, he was really helpful. He, understood me. He provided support. He was robust with me when I needed to be had to happen, but also empathetic when that was the right thing to do as well. Who was led by example, who, brought me up, who showed a great, understanding of, me and my challenges, and didn't make me feel as though, that wasn't important or made me feel marginalized. Just somebody who, people can ultimately say, yeah, I know that guy, I like, he did a great job, and I liked working with him. Well, that guy's my dad, and I'm really, I really love my dad, whatever it might be.
I will settle for that. We'll settle. I think that may be coming to a town near us. Maybe you already have it, but yeah, knowing the girls and my son as we do, I think it goes full circle. Your parents, you have the caregiving duty, and then you have that bit where they're no longer called to hang around. And then I think, like now, I think of my dad, and he is without doubt one of my best friends, because there are very few people that have that vested interest in your success that a parent will have. But I think from what you said, what a legacy that would be. And I knowing you as I do, you already passed the assignment, and my prayer for you is that you just have the health and strength to continue with the mission that you're on, because yeah, you're doing it. It's not really a legacy, you're already living that. So thank you so much for sharing that, and hopefully, you know, really inspiring other people to start where they are, use what they have, do what they can, and push forward really, and change the narrative and move the dial in many respects, as you have really. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been great to see you today and to chat that through. It's been really, really great.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll let you go, and yeah, no doubt we'll catch up soon. But yeah, thanks once again. All the best, my man.
Yeah, thanks, Kofi. Good to see you. Take care.
Bye
Thanks.
now.
Bye.